So yes, some of you are new here. So this class has been going on for quite a while. We're going through the text called the Middle-Length Treatise on the Stages of the Path to Enlightenment by Lama Tsongkhapa. So it's going through all the things that we have to do to reach enlightenment. And we're now on the section of the 6 perfections of a Bodhisattva. We just started the 4th perfection of joyous effort. Very important practice. So we'll start with some prayers and then a bit of meditation on something from last week's class.
So the text is on the sheets on your tables, if you don't have it. To the teacher endowed, transcendent destroyer, one thus gone, foe destroyer, completely and fully awakened one, perfect in knowledge and good conduct, one gone to bliss, nor of the world, supreme guide of beings to be tamed, teacher of gods and humans, dear the Buddha and the transcendent destroyer, glorious conqueror, Shakyamuni, I prostrate, make offerings, and go for refuge. When, O supreme among humans, you were born on this earth, you paced 7 strides and said, I am supreme in this world. To you who are wise, then I bow. With pure bodies formed supremely fine, wisdom ocean like a golden mountain, fame that blazes in the 3 worlds, winner of the best supreme guide, to you I bow. With a supreme science, face like a spotless moon, color like gold, to you I bow. You are immaculate, the 3 worlds are not incomparable, wise one, to you I bow. Great compassionate protector, all-knowing teacher, field of merit and good qualities, vast as an ocean, to the Tathagata I bow. Through purity, freeing from attachment, through virtue, freeing from the lower realms, unique, supreme, ultimate reality, to the Dharma that is peace I bow. Having freed themselves, showing the path to freedom too, well established in the trainings, the holy field endowed with good qualities, to the Sangha I bow. Do not commit any non-virtuous actions, perform only perfect virtuous actions. Subdue your mind completely, this is the teaching of the Buddha. A star, a mirage, a flame of a lamp, an illusion, a drop of dew, a bubble, a dream, a flash of lightning, a cloud, see conditioned things as such. Through this merit may sentient beings attain the state of all-seeing, subdue the foe of faults, and be delivered from the ocean of cyclic existence, perturbed by the waves of aging, sickness, and death. This ground anointed with perfume, flowers strewn Mount Meru, 4 lands, sun and moon, imagined as a Buddha land and offered to you, may all beings enjoy this pure land. Venerable holy gurus, in the space of your truth body, from billowing clouds of your wisdom and love, let fall the rain of the profound and extensive Dharma, in whatever form is suitable for subduing sentient beings. Idam Gurana Mandala Kandiryatayami. I take refuge until I have awakened in the Buddhas, the Dharma, and the Sangha. By the merit I create by listening to the Dharma, I will attain Buddhahood in order to benefit all sentient beings. I take refuge until I have awakened in the Buddhas, the Dharma, and the Sangha. By the merit I create by listening to the Dharma, I will attain Buddhahood in order to benefit all sentient beings. I take refuge until I have awakened in the Buddhas, the Dharma, and the Sangha. By the merit I create by listening to the Dharma, I will attain Buddhahood in order to benefit all sentient beings.
So take a few more minutes to check your mind, your motivation, and renew the bodhicitta motivation you generated earlier today, so that you really feel that you're here participating in this class, not just for your own benefit, but for the benefit of others, all living beings if possible, and not just short-term benefit like happiness of this life, but long-term benefit, happiness in all future lives, all the way up to the attainment of full enlightenment, Buddhahood. And so for the meditation, we just started on the perfection of joyous effort last week. And the verse in the Guru Puja, which we recite twice a month, the verse related to the perfection of joyous effort says, "Inspire me to perfect far-reaching joyous effort by remaining undiscouraged and striving with compassion for supreme awakening, even if I must remain for an ocean of eons in the fiery hells for the sake of each sentient being." So this idea of remaining in hell for an eons, even for one sentient being, is probably not something most of us are able to feel with 100% conviction. And instead, that idea is probably quite frightening. Lama Tsongkhapa says that it's beneficial even to have the aspiration to generate such an attitude. And last week we looked at something from Geshe Zopa's commentary, where he explained a way that we can start to develop such an attitude. And so I thought it would be a good idea to give it a try. So he says, first think about how you would like to free all sentient beings from suffering and help them all to attain bliss, especially the highest peace and happiness of enlightenment. So just Think how wonderful that would be if you could help every sentient being be free of all their suffering and help them to have all happiness up to the highest happiness of enlightenment. But in order to actually do that, we ourselves have to attain the state of enlightenment. And in order to do that, in order to become enlightened, to help all living beings, it takes a long time and a lot of hard work. We have to sacrifice a lot and go through a lot of hardship to actually reach that state of enlightenment. But rather than be daunted by that, imagine yourself confident, happy, and having no reservations, even if you have to practice for so long. So just try to have a mental picture of yourself being in that state of mind. So imagine yourself feeling that no matter how difficult it is to reach enlightenment, your mind still says, it's okay, no problem, I am happy to do it. And maybe you can recall a time when you did have such a feeling about some job, some task, some project that was challenging, that took a lot of time and energy, but you weren't concerned about that and you felt confident and courageous and even happy about engaging in that work. So if you can remember a time like that, then get in touch with that. Get in touch with the feelings you had at that time. So Geshe Zopa says that this kind of preparation gives our mind enormous power, and just aspiring to have this kind of joyous effort creates a lot of merit. And if we train ourselves in this way, our enthusiasm will gradually become as firm as a bodhisattva's. So there were some really nice things in Geshe Zopa's commentary, so I thought to share some more. So he said that since all sentient beings have Buddha nature, the potential and the ability to attain enlightenment, then all sentient beings also have the potential to develop this kind of incredible courage, this joyous effort, because that is a requirement for attaining enlightenment. So even though it may seem, oh, I could never feel that way, but we shouldn't think that way. It is possible. Gradually, we work on our mind, train our mind, and gradually we can get to the point where we would have that attitude of joyous effort. And he also says that it's because of their compassion for others that bodhisattvas who have this kind of joyous effort feel joy even when faced with the necessity of practicing for such an incredibly long time. So that's where that joy comes from, is compassion for others. Just engaging in whatever will bring benefit to others. And he also says that even if we can produce this kind of thought for a moment, it will give us the courage to face any difficulty we experience when helping sentient beings. And this kind of thought also creates more merit than years of practicing giving and other virtues. Right? That's pretty amazing. Just generating that thought of joyous effort is more merit than years of giving. And it also purifies innumerable obstacles and negative karmas. So it accumulates a lot of merit and also purifies a lot of negative energy, obstructions. And also he says, you probably heard Venerable talk about irreversibility when a bodhisattva is on the path. They attain, at some point they attain a sign of irreversibility. It's definite, they will never fall back. So that's kind of a real significant point in the bodhisattva's career. And Geshe Zopa said, training in joyous effort is the cause for attaining that state of irreversibility. And for some bodhisattvas, it can happen even before they reach the first ground, the first bhumi, path of seeing. So they can attain that irreversibility pretty early on, but every bodhisattva will eventually attain it by the 8th ground, so the 8th bhumi. They all have attained irreversibility. So joyous effort is the cause of that. So that means when you attain that point of irreversibility, you're never going to fall back to any other path. You're just going to keep going and reach enlightenment. And something else he said that's interesting. He said, if we are joyful and unafraid to spend a long time practicing to attain enlightenment, we will actually get there much more quickly, even in one lifetime. I mean, that's rare, but it does happen. And then on the other hand, if we have the attitude of wanting to attain enlightenment in the easiest and fastest way possible, then it will take much, much longer because we have no real enthusiasm for engaging in the limitless deeds necessary to benefit sentient beings. So if you want to get there the fastest way possible, it'll actually take you longer. But if you have this willingness, I will, no matter how long it takes, I will just do it. I will keep going and work for enlightenment. Then you'll get there faster. And so if you have that other attitude of wanting to get there quickly, then he said as soon as we see some small difficulty, then we think, oh, I don't want to go through that. I want something less complicated and quicker. Because we want to avoid adversity and practices that take a long time, we cannot muster the energy to do much of anything. Everything becomes a hardship and a hindrance. That's a sign that enlightenment will not be achieved for eons. So that's interesting, isn't it? That, yeah, wanting to get there quickly and easily will take you longer. But having this joyous effort that's willing to keep working for enlightenment no matter how long it takes and how difficult it is, you'll actually get there faster. I was thinking that this is something we can start to work on here in the Abbey, in our daily life. Yeah, like there's various challenges to living in the Abbey, having to get up early in the morning and go to meditation, and spending hours every day offering service, hours of listening to teachings, and what else? Relationships. Living together, yes. Thinking, oh, it'd be so nice if I could just stay by myself in a little hut in the forest and not have to deal with all these difficult people. Fantasizing about that. Washing dishes, countless dishes. Answering countless emails. Yeah, so whatever hardships, difficulties we face in our life here in the Abbey or in our life in general, in our practice in general, instead of letting yourself get discouraged by these and feeling, oh, this is too much, I don't want to deal with this, then see it as, oh, this is giving me the chance to practice the Dharma and get closer to enlightenment. So of course it takes time to develop that kind of attitude. It's not something that arises naturally and effortlessly, but we'll be going through material on how to develop this kind of joyous effort. So we have the slides. So we just barely started on this topic last week, and I'll just review some of the points we covered last week. First is the explanation of joyous effort, what it is. Sometimes it's translated as perseverance or effort or zeal. You know, different translators like to use different English terms, but here we're using joyous effort. So it is a mind that is truly delighted to gather virtue and work for the welfare of sentient beings, as well as actions motivated by such a mind. So it's mainly a mind, an attitude, a state of mind that has joy about doing what's virtuous, doing good deeds, and also benefiting sentient beings. And then actions that we do, actions of our body, actions of speech, actions of mind that are motivated by this kind of attitude. So that's what's included in joyous effort. And then there are three types. The first is called armor-like joyous effort. And then the joyous effort of gathering virtuous phenomena, and the joyous effort of working for the welfare of sentient beings. So the first one we just started looking at last week, and I was thinking about the name of this joyous effort. It's called armor-like, and they talk about kind of the bodhisattva being like a warrior. So in the past, warriors, knights, and so on would put on armor, often this really heavy, must have been incredibly heavy, made of metal, to protect their bodies from things like arrows and spears and so on. And I guess they still use that term, like armored vehicles, right? They talk about armored vehicles. But the kind of body, they don't use that term, do they? They don't call that armor. They do? I thought they call it something else. Anyway, they call it armor, okay. Even though it's not made of metal anymore, it's made of something else.
There's specific pieces of armor that there are specific pieces of body armor that is worn in modern warfare. So
Okay.
You've got, like, they call it your Kevlar, which is the helmet, and then there's individual body armor, they'll call it your IBA. But see, the word armor is still in there, so
Okay.
we still call it armor.
Okay. So anyway, that's the usual use of that term, armor. It's to protect from weapons. So why does a bodhisattva need armor? What does a bodhisattva need to protect themselves from? Their own mind, anger, afflictions. Yes. And you're joking. Yeah. So it's mainly the inner enemies of the afflictions, like greed, hatred, ignorance, and also laziness. Laziness is said to be the opposite of joyous effort. So we'll be looking at that later. What is laziness? The different kinds of laziness and how to deal with them, how to overcome them. So yeah. So it's mainly things from within the mind that we need to protect themselves from. And joyous effort is a way to do that, to protect oneself from these internal enemies, because they are obstacles to attaining our goals of enlightenment and benefiting sentient beings. So we'll continue where we left off, page 261. Well, actually, I'll just I'll reread the first. So the bottom of page 261. We'll just start with that paragraph where it's talking about the three subdivisions of joyous effort. So he's among the three. The first is armor-like joyous effort. When bodhisattvas undertake joyous effort, they don the armor of mental delight as a preliminary attitude before applying themselves to something. That is, even if to attain Buddhahood, to eliminate the suffering of one sentient being, they must abide exclusively in the hells for 100,000 times 10 million rounds of 3 immeasurable eons. They delight in it. So that doesn't mean that you actually do have to spend that much time in the hells, but you need to have the willingness to do that, the attitude of being willing to go through such difficulties, even to help one sentient being. But of course, if you do have that kind of willingness, it'll probably take you much less time. Also, with respect to their joyous effort at attaining complete enlightenment, they wear the armor of the attitude. If I will not give up engaging in joyous effort for that length of time, what need is there to mention that I will not give it up if the duration and suffering are less? So in other words, even if it doesn't take me that long to reach enlightenment and benefit sentient beings, however long it does take, I will continue working with joyous effort for enlightenment. for the benefit of all sentient beings. So it's just this incredible courage and willingness to spend as long as it takes and go through whatever hardships are in the way to accomplish your goals. Then the second type of joyous effort, the joyous effort of gathering virtuous phenomena, is to apply oneself to them for the sake of accomplishing the 6 perfections. So the explanation in this book is very brief, probably because this book was written after his great treatise on the stages of the path, where he did spend, give a lot more information. I will bring in some information from that text, the Lamrim Chenmo, and also from Geshe Zopa's commentary. And so with regard to this second one, gathering virtuous phenomena, Geshe Zopa says that once a warrior has prepared their armor, they gather up their weapons. So you put on your armor, make sure you're protecting yourself, and then you get your weapons. And then he says, similarly, now that we have the armor that prevents discouragement, we must engage in the practice of virtue to create the causes and conditions necessary for the attainment of enlightenment. So the weapons of the Bodhisattva aren't like spears and AK-47s and grenades and things like that, but the 6 perfections. So practicing the 6 perfections are the actual means to accomplish the attainment of enlightenment and benefit all sentient beings. So he says the 6 perfections brings everything together, everything necessary for accomplishing one's goal. It includes all the practices of virtue to be accomplished, plus the antidotes to remove obstacles. So within the practice of the 6 perfections, we have all the virtues, all the good energy, the positive energy that we need to, progress to enlightenment, but also antidotes to the obstacles that come along. Just like weapons are used to, get rid of your enemies, within the practices of the 6 perfections, you have antidotes to the various obstacles. So like giving, the practice of giving is an obstacle to miserliness, attachment. And the practice of ethics is the obstacle to, all the afflictions which lie behind our non-virtuous, harmful actions. And then the practice of patience is the antidote to anger, a huge problem. And then joyous effort is the antidote to laziness, and so on. So within the practice of the 6 perfections, then we can overcome whatever obstacles there are to attaining enlightenment. And Geshe Zopa says, doing all these practices of the 6 perfections with delight and without hesitation is the practice of the perfection of joyous effort. He says we start with small, easy practices, so you don't right from the beginning do really hard things that are beyond your ability, but you start with little things like washing dishes, washing toilets, putting on your robes correctly, and so on. So little things that we can do without too much difficulty, and then gradually take on more and more difficult ones, and eventually we can even do the most demanding ones without difficulty. So it's a gradual training, gradual practice. So gathering virtuous phenomena is mainly practicing the 6 perfections. And the third type of joyous effort is called working for the welfare of sentient beings, and that is similar to the above, which is a little vague, but I think it refers to, there's 11 ways of helping sentient beings. We went through that list previously. Just different ways of helping sentient beings, like those who are hungry, impoverished, those who are mentally, distraught, afraid, and so on. So yeah, but just in general, where there are sentient beings who are suffering, who are in difficulties, in need of help, then you work to help them. So having joyous effort in working for sentient beings and not seeing it as these sentient beings are so difficult. I can't stand it. So just being joyful about that. But again, that takes time to train that state of mind. So then next, the next main point in the outline is how to generate it in one's mind stream. So if we lack joyous effort and have more of its opposite, laziness, then how to work on that. So if we have the thought, well, this is just how I am. I'm just lazy. I've always been lazy. My mother was lazy. My father was lazy. All my friends were lazy. It's just, the way I am. And I've always been this way, and I always will be this way. I can't do anything about it. So you might think that way and feel daunted by just generating joyous effort, but that's not a helpful way to think, because remember, our mind is impermanent. We are impermanent, and our mind is impermanent, and we can change. So we need to have confidence that it is possible to change ourselves. And if we, here in this next section, we're looking at the benefits of having joyous effort, and then the faults of not having joyous effort. So if we look at those, contemplate those, hopefully that will inspire us to generate joyous effort, to increase joyous effort. So we start with the benefits. And so I put, for those who don't have a book, I put the main points up here. So it says the benefits of undertaking joyous effort are as described in Ornament for the Mahayana Sutras. This is a text by Maitreya Buddha. Says joyous effort is best among virtues accumulations. By relying on it, one attains the rest. Through joyous effort, one immediately gains the best source of happiness, including mundane and transcendental attainments. Through joyous effort, one gains the worldly wealth one desires. We have to be careful about that, That's not our ultimate goal, is to become a billionaire and even surpass, who's the richest person? Is it Musk? He's still, it's always somebody else, but want to be the richest person in the world, or even number 2 or number 3, that's not our goal. But it is useful to have wealth, because if you have it, then you can do a lot of good. You can build a Buddha hall. You can, make donations to lots of worthy causes, like Jeff Bezos' ex-wife. What's her name? McKinley something. Anyone remember? No. Anyway, the ex-wife of Jeff Bezos, they both started Amazon together. So she got a big share of the millions of dollars when they separated and divorced. But anyway, she's made this pledge, this promise to give away millions of dollars, and and she has all these organizations and charitable projects and so on that she gives money to. It's so wonderful that, and there's others, of course, lots of people who do that. They give away their money rather than hoard it for themselves. So, so if you have wealth, you can do a lot of good, a lot of benefit for others. So yeah, it's not a bad thing, but all depends on your motivation and what you do with it. And then it says, through joyous effort, one becomes totally pure. So that's what we really want to do, is purify our mind of our afflictions and our karma, and have the totally pure mind of a Buddha. Through joyous effort, one is liberated, passing beyond the transitory collection. That's referring to the ignorance that grasps it as self and I, believing I exist inherently, truly, and that's the thing that keeps us stuck in samsara. So we get to become free of that and free of samsara with joyous effort. Through joyous effort, one wakes to supreme enlightenment. So I'll just finish reading that section and then go through the points on the slide. So then another text, the Compendium of the Perfections, also says, there is nothing that can't be attained, that can't be accomplished for those who have great joyous effort and do not dismay. And from the same text, all non-humans like to benefit him or her, a person who has joyous effort. He achieves all manners of concentration. He passes days and nights experiencing results. Through masses of excellent qualities, he won't decline. Through aims more noble than concerns of humans, he will flourish like an upala flower. So just to summarize the benefits, I kind of reworded it, but I think what I have up here is a summary of those. So it enables us to attain other virtues. So that can refer to the accumulation of the two main causes of enlightenment, like the two wings of the bird we need to reach enlightenment, method and wisdom. So when they divide the six perfections between those two, method and wisdom, the two wings of the path, there's different ways of dividing them, which perfections belong to which side. But one way of dividing them has, on the method side, is the first three perfections of giving, ethics, and patience. And on the wisdom side are the last two perfections, concentration and wisdom. So that's more developing our mind and calm abiding and special insight, which we need for our own mind to reach enlightenment. And then they say joyous effort belongs to both, because we need joyous effort to accumulate both the first three perfections, giving, ethics, and patience, and we also need it in the last two perfections. We need a lot of effort to develop concentration and then wisdom. So it belongs to both sides of the path. So maybe that's the meaning here, that with joyous effort we can accumulate all the other virtues, all the other causes of enlightenment. We can also think of other qualities, good qualities like loving kindness. We want to develop that towards all sentient beings, loving kindness and compassion universally for all sentient beings. And of course, bodhicitta, which we need to reach enlightenment. Yeah, so if we lack joyous effort and we have its opposite, laziness, we won't have the energy to apply ourselves to doing those practices and fulfilling them, so that they will grow and lead us to enlightenment. So I think that's what it means when it says, if you have joyous effort, you'll attain all the rest, all the other virtues, all the other good qualities. And then the second is we gain the best source of happiness, both mundane, so mundane happiness refers to while we're still in samsara, it'll take a while to get out of samsara and get to full enlightenment. But within samsara, we want to make sure we have good situations, good rebirths, so we can continue to practice and work our way to enlightenment. And we want resources like wealth. We need to have at least a certain amount of wealth, possessions, so that we can practice and not be worrying about where our next meal is going to come from and so on, and be able to benefit others. So to have all the good circumstances within samsara until we get out. So joyous effort will enable us to accomplish those, to attain those. And then the transcendental happiness, that refers to the Arya paths. So transcendental, the term transcendental refers to from the point of having the direct realization of emptiness on. So having that direct realization of emptiness, which makes you an Arya, and you attain the first bhumi. You start progressing on the bhumis, the grounds leading to enlightenment. So all those paths, from the path of seeing on, from the first ground on. So the trend, the incredible happiness of those states of mind, and then liberation, when you're totally liberated from all the afflictions, which for the Bodhisattva happens on the 8th bhumi, the 8th ground. And then finally, full enlightenment, perfect enlightenment of Buddhahood. So those are the transcendental forms of happiness that can be achieved on the basis of joyous effort. So all those wonderful results come from joyous effort. And then it says there's nothing that can't be attained by those who have great joyous effort. So believing in oneself, having this incredible self-confidence and courage. So if you have that, then anything can be attained. And then the last point isn't in our book, but it's in Geshe Zopa's commentary. He says that joyous effort is necessary in the beginning, middle, and end of our practice. So it's necessary in the beginning to even start practicing, right? To even, think, okay, yeah, this is a good path, I want to follow it, and start practicing, developing good qualities like love and compassion and mindfulness and concentration and so on. And then in the middle is to be able to keep practicing even when you encounter difficulties, things get hard, challenging, and maybe you start feeling some discouragement, some disillusionment, like maybe you thought this was going to be easy, right? We all do that. When I started off, I thought, oh yeah, those afflictions, greed, hatred, ignorance, they're really bad. I don't want them in my mind. I'm going to get rid of them. And after a few months, I got really discouraged because they were still there. And I thought, what's going on here? They shouldn't be there. So yeah, we often have unrealistic ideas about practice, and can get discouraged when it doesn't happen as we thought it might be. So even when those things happen, to not give up, but to keep practicing. And then in the end, to keep going, however long it takes, continuing to develop good qualities and the causes for enlightenment until we reach the end of our practice, which is the attainment of enlightenment. So we need joyous effort all along the path. Then, so those are the benefits, and it's good to spend some time contemplating. Maybe we can start the next week's class. We can do a meditation on these benefits of joyous effort too. But yeah, on your own, good to contemplate how beneficial it is to have joyous effort. And then there's the faults of not undertaking joyous effort. Those are on page 263. And so there's a quotation from a sutra called The Questions of Sagaramati Sutra. It says, "For the lazy, enlightenment is in all ways very far. In the lazy, generosity and so forth up to wisdom do not exist." So the 6 perfections don't exist in those who are lazy. For the lazy, the welfare of others does not exist. And then another sutra called the Application of Mindfulness Sutra also says, "The one foundation of mental afflictions is laziness, no matter in whom. He who has only laziness does not have any dharma at all." You should think like this. So let's look at those faults. So laziness itself is an affliction. It's one of the secondary afflictions, also called auxiliary afflictions. And a definition of laziness given in volume 3, Samsara, Nirvana, Buddha Nature. It's a mental factor that, having firmly grasped an object offering temporary happiness, either does not wish to do anything constructive, or, although wishing to, is weak-minded. So laziness happens when we have attachment to things that don't bring long-term happiness, but bring only temporary happiness, like coffee, or lying in a hammock, lying on the beach. Those are just some examples of things that we can get attached to and grasp to. And then you either don't want to do anything constructive, you just want to hang out there in your nice, comfortable little cocoon of temporary happiness, or you may wish to do something constructive, like you have the thought, I really should do something useful, but you don't have the energy, you're weak-minded, so you just keep sitting there in your little cocoon of temporary happiness. So I'm sure we've all been in that situation, right? And laziness leads to excessive sleep, involvement with meaningless activities, and discouragement. So those kind of describe different types of laziness, which we'll be going through. And so in general, that's what laziness is. And like I mentioned before, it wouldn't be wise or skillful to think, well, I am just a lazy person. I think some people were like that. I remember meeting a woman who's it's kind of sad in a way, but she was married to this man who he would just spend hours, like even the whole day, just lying on the couch doing nothing, and she'd be running around doing all the housework and da-da-da-da-da. And she'd try to say something to him, and he would just say, yes, yeah, it's true, I'm lazy, but that's just how I am. And didn't even try to do anything about it. So in the end, she just got fed up and said, okay, I'm finished. This is left him. But I'm sure that caused a lot of suffering for both of them. But yeah, so there are people who are like that, who really think this is how I am and I can't be different, I can't change myself. But that's not true, we can change ourselves. It can take some joyous effort to get ourselves out of out of a situation of laziness, but it is possible. And so we have to believe in ourselves, believe in the possibility of change. And yeah, slowly, slowly, we can become less lazy and have more joyous energy. So the faults then of not practicing joyous effort, in the quote it says, "For the lazy, enlightenment is very far." So yeah, it will take a long time to reach enlightenment, and I think that's something we all do want to do, otherwise we wouldn't be here. So we all do have this aspiration to attain enlightenment. But as Geshe Zopa said, if we lack joyous effort, it will take a long, long time to get there. But if we have joyous effort, then we can reach enlightenment quickly. So, yeah, enlightenment will be close. It will take less time if we have joyous effort rather than laziness. And then, for those who are lazy, the 6 perfections don't exist in them. So the 6 perfections are the actual practices that enable us to attain enlightenment, but we need joyous effort to practice the 6 perfections and keep practicing them until we reach our goal. So without joyous effort, then it's doubtful to say that you actually do have any of the 6 perfections, even the perfection of giving, which is usually the easiest for most people. That's why it's put there number 1. Work on that one, because that's easy to do. But even, if you lack joyous effort, you won't even have the energy to give of your resources, your energy, and your time, and so on. So you won't have the 6 perfections. The welfare of others doesn't exist for them. So if you have laziness, then you won't have the energy to do things for others. Yeah, even helping someone carry a suitcase or wash the dishes, or anything that they need help with. But if, like that woman whose husband was so lazy he couldn't get off the couch and help her with housework or go shopping or do anything else. So yeah, it's a big impediment to thinking of others and actually doing things for others. So yeah. And then the last point, was that quotation from the Application of Mindfulness Sutra. It says, laziness is the foundation, the one foundation of mental afflictions is laziness. So I was kind of wondering about that. I didn't find much explanation of that, but wondering how is it that laziness itself is an affliction. So when laziness is in the mind, then our mind is afflicted. But how is it the foundation of all the other, doesn't say all, but it's the foundation of other afflictions. One thought I had was that because we have within our mind the seeds of afflictions, we've had the afflictions in our mind from many, many, many lifetimes, right back to beginningless time. So we come into this life already with our mind full of seeds of afflictions, just waiting to be nourished, ripened. And then when we encounter certain causes and conditions, then those seeds ripen and we experience the actual afflictions. Anger, attachment, jealousy, pride, and so on and so forth. All the various afflictions just popping up in our mind. And if we have laziness, we might know about antidotes to afflictions. We might have learned how to deal with afflictions. But with laziness, we don't have the energy to apply those antidotes. Yeah, so we just let the afflictions come up in our mind and take over our mind and take over our life. and we just act them out without making any effort to counteract them. And so in that way, our afflictions increase, perpetuate, they get perpetuated. So they say in the teachings, the Tibetan teachings have this saying about how following afflictions, following afflicted states of mind is like rolling a boulder down a hill. It's just so easy. You just give it a little nudge and it just goes rolling down the hill. So we probably all had that experience of, an affliction coming up in our mind, and maybe some part of our mind, some tiny little part of my mind is saying, oh, this isn't a good state of mind, I shouldn't be doing this, but we just go with it. It's like the path of least resistance, it's just so easy to follow the afflictions and so hard not to. So I was thinking that may be one way that laziness plays a role in our afflictions. Any other ideas about how laziness can be the foundation of afflictions?
Maybe the laziness of discouragement can also just not even think we can. That kind of mind that gives up before we've even started.
I can't, yeah. Venerable Lama Tsongkhapa.
I think when I'm feeling lazy, then when I'm asked to do things, this anger or frustration arises because I don't want to. Or this should be easy, then frustration arises because it's taking more effort than I want. Or things should be easy with the pride that's there, that I shouldn't have to work this hard, this shouldn't be like this. Or I should always have like the laziness of just wanting things to be easy and comfortable, that then I think jealousy arises because I should have that, others shouldn't have that. That just breeds, yeah.
So having laziness just kind of provides fertile soil in the mind for the afflictions to pop up. Yeah. Nicole, and then Venerable Tseta.
So, Venerable, I think sometimes people equate laziness to ingenuity, meaning when they think something is too much work, they look for an easier way to do it. And there's a popular saying that goes, if you want something done quickly, you get a lazy person to do it. And in that way, it can be seen as a virtue. And I wonder, are they just mislabeling it laziness, or are they actually thinking laziness is a good thing?
I don't know. I haven't heard that. You heard that, Venerable Khadro? You heard that saying? I'm the culprit. You're the culprit.
When there's a better way to do it, I have that mind of, I can do it this way, and then
Shortcut.
yeah, it's a shortcut way, and people will think that, oh, that's very efficient, and I'm like, I'm just being lazy, so I don't want to do it the long way. It gives the same thing, why not? That kind of mind, so I'm the culprit.
I mean, there's maybe in some situations that could be true. If someone is doing, like, washing clothes by hand, right? Washing clothes by hand, that takes a long time, a lot of energy. If you throw them in the washing machine, it's so much faster, more efficient. You can do other things with that time. So, why wash clothes by hand when you can do them in the machine? So I wouldn't, maybe in some cases taking a shortcut doesn't actually lead to good results. You may make a mess of things. The result doesn't turn out very well. But in other cases, there is a more efficient way, then why not? I'm just saying that example because when I was living in Singapore, there was one woman I knew who didn't have a washing machine. And she said she didn't feel good about using a washing machine. She liked doing it by hand. And I thought, what? So, but I didn't want to argue with her. I was quite happy to have a washing machine. But it could also be because that's the way her mother did it and her grandmother did it and she did it, and it's just the way she's always done it. And maybe it takes too much energy to go and buy a washing machine. I don't know. But so if you do have an easier, more efficient way of doing something, why not? If it doesn't cause any problems. That's my thought. Venerable Tsongkhapa.
I think it's in the Low-Rig text when studying about faith, there's that formula. Faith leads to aspiration, which leads to joyous effort, which leads to results. And so if there's no joyous effort, then our aspirations just stay as aspirations. And we don't get the results that we're looking for. It's kind of restating what you said about.
Yeah, it's one of the main factors. Well, actually, cultivating calm abiding, when, the teachings on calm abiding, which will be coming too soon. I think the first obstacle is laziness, isn't it? First obstacle to calm abiding is laziness. We just don't feel like, putting the effort into keeping our mind concentrated. And to overcome that laziness, you need faith, and then aspiration, joyous effort, and then eventually you'll get pliancy, which, wow, this bliss. You just want to sit there and meditate all day. So, Andrea, I got it right? Sorry. I have to retrain myself.
I think this is really interesting to think about the difference between efficiency and laziness. And also thinking about it in the context of how we use technology in this day and age too. What came to mind with just this conversation right now was a couple years back, I was helping, I think it was Venerable Lamso with some transcriptions or something like that with the recordings online, and just typing out word by word. I was telling my brother about it afterwards, and he was like, why would you not just put that into like a transcription machine? It's taking you forever to do that, and you could just feed that into the device and it would generate something really fast. And I remember thinking, like, on the one hand, I see where he's coming from, but I think I responded something along the lines of, I don't know if speed is necessarily the point here, but I was curious. I mean, just from your perspective, when we have the opportunity to help out with transcriptions or offering service, when there are tools potentially to help, let's say with transcription or potentially even AI, what are your thoughts on whether or not to use it or to what extent?
That was, I think, the first job I had when I became a nun at Kopan Monastery, because I knew how to type. So they gave me a typewriter and what are those things called? Transcription machine, with a pedal. And I was so happy to be able to do that because I could listen to the teachings again and again very carefully. I had to listen very carefully to type them down. And then eventually the transcripts, the idea was to make them into books. So it was contributing to something beneficial that would spread the Dharma, these wonderful teachings, to many, many people. So, I mean, if you just give it to a machine or AI, then you don't have that experience of listening to the teachings again. But it's a question of time. I mean, if you have the time, it does take a lot of time to do it. It's very beneficial for you, the listener, the transcriber. The AI that's transcribing doesn't get that kind of benefit because there's no mind, no consciousness there. But the end product will be, yes, many people can benefit. So it depends on conditions, yeah? If you have the time to do it manually, great. But if not, and there's so many tapes here in the Abbey and not that many people who have the time to transcribe them. And so if it can be done you call it digitally or mechanically, or how do you, anyway, with a machine. If it can't, then that means those tapes can get transcribed more quickly and then on the website for people to benefit. So I think you just have to take each situation individually and look at, what would be reasonable and beneficial in this situation.
I'm highly addicted to efficiency. And the kind of work I was doing before in my lay life really encouraged this kind of behavior, finding ways to do things quickly and more quickly and being very efficient with my time and my team and all of that. And when I learned about the type of laziness that's called being the busiest of the busy, just keeping ourselves busy and more busy, this is something that I have definitely. When I learned that this is a type of laziness, actually I was like, I'm being very lazy actually, because I keep falling into that trap here at the Abbey where I want to do things efficiently so that I can have more time to practice the Dharma or do some more Dharma related stuff. But as I'm doing stuff more efficiently, then I just keep on going down my task list, accomplishing more and more things. So I keep myself distracted all the time. I've done that thing very well, and now I can do something else. I was planning to study or read something, but I keep just rolling. I get into that mindset of wanting to do one thing, another thing, and another thing, and another thing. And then my day goes by, and I haven't done the thing that I was really cherishing in my heart. Oh, I want to review my notes, or I want to think more about that, or maybe I can think of writing a BBC for once, or something like that. But no, I keep having a brush cutter in my hand, or like I'm moving a pickup truck, or I'm doing something else. It's crazy. It's just crazy. Yes, I've done a lot for the Abbey, but I haven't sat down and done the thing that I wanted to do first. It's crazy, crazy. That happens all the time.
Yeah. Yeah, I haven't heard that term before, the busiest of the busy. But that sounds like the laziness of being attached to bad activities. That's how it's normally explained. But in your case, it's not really bad activities. It's Dharma related, but yeah, it definitely is something that can happen. You get involved in these more like peripheral activities. They're not really bad, like, going to the movies and things like that, but they're also not really focused.
Yeah, the motivation is often good at the beginning, but then I get addicted to this, they call it the flow. When you get into the groove of doing something and you're really good at doing it, then you really like this kind of, it's a weird type of attachment. You kind of like the
Maybe
feeling
there's
of
some adrenaline there.
Yeah.
It's hard to stop. Yeah, I can relate to that too. So I guess we do have to recognize that as a problem, and retrain ourselves to say, hey, wait a minute, I've spent enough time, or just beforehand decide this is how much time I'm going to spend doing that, then I'm going to go and hit the books, or hit the cushion, or do some more real Dharma, something that's more related to transforming our mind. And also watch the mind, what's going on in the mind and the motivation and so on. So I guess that can happen easily here in the Abbey because there's just so many things that need to be done, and often not enough people. I'm trying to pass the microphone. Venerable Chuni.
Efficiency is not on the list of virtues. And yet, culturally, our work world really instills that as a virtue. And I think I see often here, we get caught up in thinking that that's the most important thing, is to do it efficiently. And sometimes it costs relationships, it costs connection, and sometimes it just causes more complications because we've not actually ascertained the real meaning of the task we're about to do. We're just trying to get it done. So I think that's something that we all kind of bring in with us because it's so much a part of our education now. and also our work world. So it's really something to be aware of in terms of this laziness conversation.
Yeah. Interesting. I guess this kind of thing didn't happen in Tibet because, there were almost no machines, no electricity. If you wanted to go somewhere, you had to walk there, and that could take hours or days or months. So I suppose the whole pace of life was just so different. And so, yeah. So then let's move on. So next, middle of page 263, there are two adverse conditions for joyous effort. Seeing that one is able to accomplish virtuous dharma but not engaging in it, and the discouragement that thinks, how could I ever accomplish anything like that? So he's not really using the terms laziness here, but usually in other texts it does talk about different kinds of laziness, and the main the usual explanation is that there's three types of laziness, and sometimes they mention four. I've also seen a fourth type of laziness. So I guess it's just different texts. But the usual three types of laziness are first procrastination, putting things off, thinking, you got plenty of time. You're going to live forever, so you can always do it later. That's procrastination. And then second is being attached to negative actions, bad actions. And then third is discouragement, just thinking, I can't do it. So that's considered a kind of laziness. And in the West, there's a lot of talk about depression, not just talk about depression, but experience of depression. A lot of people suffer from depression. And you just don't find that term in traditional Buddhist texts, right? It's not on the list of afflictions or other kinds of problems. It's very hard to find any mention of depression. But I think that this laziness of discouragement is probably the closest we can come to depression, because you just think, I can't do it, I'm hopeless. And then you just sink into that. And you have no energy to even try, because you think it's useless. So anyway, those are the usual three kinds of laziness. And the explanation here is a little different, but he does cover all three. Because so he says these two adverse conditions for laziness. The first one is seeing that you're able to accomplish virtuous dharma but not engaging it. So that is like, you do have confidence, you're not depressed or discouraged, you do have confidence, I can practice dharma, but you don't. And he says there are 2 points or 2 aspects of that. So that comes in the next paragraph. So first is one postpones things, thinking there is still time. So that's the first of that first type of problem, procrastinate. I'm calling it procrastination. So that's where you think, yeah, I want to practice Dharma, and I can practice Dharma, but not now because I've got something else to do. And you can keep doing that on and on and on your whole life and never actually getting around to it because you think there's plenty of time. So that's the first of the adverse condition, or the first sub-point of the first adverse condition. And then the second one is attachment to bad activities. So, so here he gives antidotes to these. So the antidote to the first, the procrastination, is to meditate on 3 thoughts. First is, this body that you have obtained will quickly disintegrate after death. Oh no, sorry, that's this body that you have obtained will quickly disintegrate. So this human body that we have, it's not just that it will disintegrate, it is disintegrating. From the moment we're born, our body starts changing and aging and going in the direction of death. So it's like every moment, every tiny fraction of time, there's disintegration happening in our body. It's getting older, and we're just moving in the direction of death. So this is like happening all the time. So we need to contemplate that. We're going to die. Then the second thought is, after death, you will fall into the lower rebirths. Well, that's not definite, but it's a possibility, especially if we don't do any dharma, that when death happens, it's possible that our next life will be in an unfortunate realm, as an animal, as a hungry ghost, or even in hell, because we've created negative karma in this life and also in our past lives. And that negative karma is still there in our mind, and it could ripen at the time of death, and we're thrown into one of these unfortunate states of existence where there'd be a lot of suffering. And not only is there suffering, but the third thought here is, it will be difficult to find such a good life once again. So once you're in one of those unfortunate realms, it's very difficult to get out, because your mind is just so full of afflictions, greed and anger and ignorance, and you're experiencing a lot of suffering, and so you tend to just perpetuate those afflictions, like hungry ghosts. They're just constantly seeking food and drink and satisfaction. And in hell, there's probably just a huge amount of anger about all the suffering they're experiencing. And also, even as animals, they also have attachment and anger, and they create negative karma. So once you're in the lower realms, you tend to just perpetuate your negative karma and your afflictions, and create the cause for more of the same, and almost zero chance to create virtue. It's almost impossible to do anything virtuous when you're in the lower realms. And so it's very, very difficult to get out, and very difficult to create the cause to have this kind of life that we have now, precious human life. So basically, the meditations in the initial scope, sometimes called the small scope of the Lamrim, that first part of the Lamrim, where we contemplate precious human rebirth, impermanence and death, the sufferings of the lower realms, and then what we need to do about that, take refuge and live according to karma. So those are the contemplations that will help us overcome procrastination, especially contemplating death, the uncertainty of our lifespan. We don't know how long we have to live. It's so easy to think, oh, I'm going to live a long time, I'm healthy, I'm not that old, so death is far away. But we really don't know. I mean, look at our friend Tanner. He was only 34 years old and passed away recently. And people even younger than that pass away. So it's got nothing to do with your age or your health, because there's accidents that can happen to healthy, young, healthy people can get into accidents and die. So we shouldn't take our life for granted. And if we contemplate those points, then we'll feel, I really can't waste time. I have to get going in my Dharma practice. So I think we'll have to stop there because we've run out of time. Any last question before we finish? Question, comment, story?
I remember in the early years, before I got my nickname of Sergeant Joyous Effort, is I think there's stages of it where you really love and enjoy something that you're doing, but sometimes the steadfastness that's required and the focus kind of isn't there. And then there's the other part where the efforting becomes sort of a just do it to do it and without the joy. So I've seen through the course of my life that putting them together in a balanced kind of way is quite a deep practice, and it comes and goes, and sometimes there's more joy but not a lot of other good qualities, and sometimes there's just a lot of effort to get it done but there's not a lot of joy. So yeah.
I've also found that like when my mind is filled with attachment or anger, it's very easy to distract myself by doing a lot. Like I could work with my mind, apply antidotes, like explore what's happening, what's the story I'm telling myself, or I can just do stuff. That's a very easy way to get myself out of it, or for just, yeah, it's kind of distracting myself for a short while.
Yeah, it's a kind of escape. One way of escape. I mean, some people take, drugs or drinks or whatever, but there's other ways of escaping, like workaholic. Yeah. Angela, do you want to say something? Or? Okay. Okay, so let's dedicate.
May the spiritual teachers who lead me on the sacred path, and all spiritual friends who practice it, have long life. May I pacify completely all outer and inner hindrances. Grant such inspiration, I pray. May the lives of the venerable spiritual mentors be stable, and their virtuous actions spread in the 10 directions. May the light of Lobsang's teachings dispelling the darkness of the beings in the 3 worlds always increase. Idam Guru Ratna Mandalakam Niryatayami. Due to this merit may we soon attain the awakened state of Guru Buddha, that we may be able to liberate all sentient beings from their suffering. May the precious Bodhi mind not yet born arise and grow. May the born have no decline, but increase forevermore.